Hi guys and girls, welcome back to the next part of this Patreon series. I'm building this engine. This flywheel come from Martin Models because, for one, I was too lazy to make the pattern, and for two, was too tight to get it cast. Cam McCowan actually made me a pattern to cast the flywheel, but I haven't as yet used that. I'm going to use this Martin model flywheel, which wasn't expensive and it's quite solid. This needs to be quite wide and quite solid. We need a fair bit off the edge of this, so we've got time to mess around and set it up and get it right. Now, there's no good setting up the outside rim because we don't know where it is and we're going to machine most of it off anyway. To set it up this way, we really need to set it up on this rim here, and I've just clamped that in the forejaw. I think it's going to be all right. We need to set it up on this rim, and we haven't really got much of a clue what this is like or where it's moved in the pattern. It could be a little bit narrower one way and a little bit wider the other way. Most castings tend to be like that, so the best thing really to do is to set it up on each jaw. Like set this one and this one up in the center and this one up in the center, and then hopefully we get a casting that's somewhere near right. Just looking at that, if we've got a digital dial indicator, or a digital indicator, which I like. Not to everyone's taste. Probably you can't really see this on camera particularly well. This says 1 thou there, and it says -2 thou there. In line with that one, it's -5, and in line with this one, it's -8. So what we've got, if we zero that, that way we've got about 2.5 thou, and this way we've got what, -3.5 and -1 there. So we're not far out there. What's telling us is that it's a couple of thou narrower one way than another, and that's because of the pattern shake, and it's pulled it out of the pattern with a little bit of stretch. But it's not a bad casting. It's not far out. It's under 5 thou this way in each direction, so that's not fussy. The other way, it's quite a bit. It's about 10 thou. If we set up here on this surface here, what we find is that one way it's about, they're both the same diagonally across, or straight across, they're both the same, but this way is about 10 thou less than this way, so there's a bit of bow in the casting. To my mind, that's not shabby. It's a fairly difficult casting to set up, and I think at some point we're going to have to say it's a casting. It's probably good enough. So it's 1.5 thou there, and this way that's exact. So I think for this casting that's plenty good enough. The secret will be to get this tight. So if we look, that's 1/2 thou there, and 1 thou there. That's what, 4 thou there, and minus, what do we got? And check that again. That's 0 there, and 0 there. That's close enough. As far as wobble goes this way, we've got that pretty well sorted too. Very easy thing setting up on the outside of the jaws here to do it the wrong way and have everything fall out. Let's go 2.5, 0. That's pretty well close enough, I think. A pretty good little check there is just to run the boring bar up against the corner there. And you see that's touching in one spot. But it's right here where the sprue was attached, so we're not going to worry too much about that. It's got a bit of a bump there. I think we're going to live with that. And that's running pretty straight there. What we find though is that out here on this edge is we've got a fair bit of wobble, because this main flange here isn't really anywhere near true to the inside of the flywheel. So the important thing really is to set this up on the inside of the flywheel. Now I'm going to move the camera out of the way while I take a cut across the top and a cut across the outside and get it cleaned up. I really need some concentration on this, so the secret will be to clean this side up and this side up and face the front, and we're going to drill it and bore it to 7/16, which is the crankshaft diameter. And we'll come back and we'll have a bit of a look at it then. So there we go. After about 4 hours, I guess, of turning this, we're down to size, or down to somewhere near where it needs to be anyway. I'm not going to actually put a vernier or even a micrometer or anything over this. Dimensions says it needs to be about 5 and 7/8, something like that. So that's going to be good enough. Now, I said before about this not cleaning up on two sides, and that's where we're at with that. This is shiny here and here. It hasn't cleaned up here. And that's distortion or whatever from when it came out of the casting. It's not too shabby really. The trick now will be to machine this down until it cleans up and looks pretty nice. And cross our fingers and hope that this is going to clean up on the other side as well when we turn it round. Then we're going to face this off and I'll bore it. Needs to be 7/16, something like that. 11mm, 7/16 I think. And we'll take it out and turn it round and face the other side, and we should be starting to look like a flywheel. So I've got this face down to what this needs to be, basically by working out what it was overall and what it needs to be, and taking one from the other and then moving in half that much. It probably needs a bit more to clean off that side. It shouldn't be far out, and it doesn't matter much because there only has to be one of them, so there's not two the same. and as long as it looks the same on both sides, no one's ever going to know if it's 5/10 thou out. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I faced this off here and I bored this, drilled it through and bored it. I'm just got the small hole gauge out, and in thousandths of an inch we're 425 exactly, nearly, I think. I've checked that a couple of times. That goes in there nicely, and it goes in there about the same, so I reckon we're about 425. We need to be 437 and a half, which is 7/16. If we zero this back to 0, and 12 and a half thou out of there, half of that is about 6 1/4 thou, and that's about back where we were. I haven't got a 7/16 reamer, unfortunately, and we're boring this from the side. You can see this is the outside of the flywheel, so we need to be somewhere near exact. That's 0.3 of a millimetre. 12 thou is 0.3, 1.32 of a millimetre. Let's try that. I reckon that's about halfway. Now, I'm going to say that's pretty close. I'm going to measure it again, but if it's not where we need it to be, I'm going to use it as an excuse to buy a reamer and run through it. And if it's oversized, well, I've got an adjustable reamer. I can run through it anyway and get it to fit a shaft. So at this point we need to measure it again. And in the front there, that's about a thou under, I reckon, a thou under. It's not too shabby. And in the back, I think it's about the same. So that's what I would expect. So we're going to call this side done. The next job is to set it up somehow the other way around, probably in the forejaw. But a faceplate would do the job nicely, and bolt it here. And face the other side is all we need to do, and put a little bit of a clean up on this corner and put a keyway in it. So back into this tonight, I've set this up within a couple of thou. It's not critical that way, because to cut this reverse side, we're only facing this off, and it only needs to be parallel to this surface, really. If you're going to get some chatter marks or some cutting marks in there, they want to be somewhere near concentric, but 3 or 4 thou is good. It's a bit closer than that. We want to face this off to the same height, here and here. Take a bit off that. Might not be quite the same height, but it does stick out about 1/4 of an inch there at the moment. So I'm going to face this, and I'm going to face this, and then we're going to have a bit of a look at it. Now, I think we're pretty close to down to size. I'm going to run little bit of a fillet on that side, just the same as the other side, just to take the arrows off, and that should, I think, be the right width. This is pretty messy stuff, as you can see. Everything goes everywhere. A sharp corner off there too. This side of the rim's got a bit of wobble in it that the other side doesn't have. I don't think it's anything seriously to worry about. What I might do, so we've got a sharp corner just there. There could be a burr, and that might fix that as well. But I think that's down to size. I'm going to take it out of the chuck and just go and have a bit of a look at it on the bench and see what we got. So there we go. That's the complete flywheel. It's down to sort of a manageable weight. It's quite a nice little iron flywheel. I think it should have enough momentum to keep the engine running, and probably it doesn't want too much overhang on the crank. I've recessed this down under like the drawing on one side. It's quite a bit lower. If we have a look, it's 5/32 of an inch, 4mm, something like that, undersized there, just so it runs just a little bit closer towards the engine. This is over, and that'll give us somewhere decent to put a key in, I hope, and a little bit of length on the keyway to put a tapered key in there to hold it all in place. So that's what we've got. So if we tear our scales and sit that down on there, get 1710 grams in metric. Now we've got a spare, which we haven't cut into, which, to give some idea, that's how much metal we've taken off it. So it's from the top of the crown here to that flat there is about 1/2 inch or a little bit more all over, and thickness wise it's about 1/4 of an inch, something like that, we've taken off. So this one is 3357 grams, 3358, and this one is 1712. So I guess all we need to do is really tear this like that, put this one on here, and we're 1647 grams, so we're about half what we needed, what we were, give or take 10%. Certainly taken a lot of meat off there, and we've gone from a pretty stocky flywheel down to something that looks like it's probably going to work. If we have a bit of a look at this flywheel pattern, which is the quite spindly one that Cam McCowan CNC milled for me, that I guess would be about 1/3 as much again, or a third smaller again, maybe half smaller again, but I think this is where it wants to be. Next job is to put a keyway in this all the way through, and to do that I'm going to use a broach, which I've got one that's about the right size here. This is a 3mm broach. It's probably about where it wants to be. It might be a fraction big, but it won't be too bad, and we won't go full depth, but we need to make a bush for that. So that's the next job, is to turn up a bit of stuff and make a bush that goes all the way through there with a slot in it to carry this. And we'll push him through and we'll have a keyway. So let's have a bit of a look at that. So I've made a steel bush that's about half a thou under what the crankshaft needs to be. This fits nicely. This is just a bit of steel. I think it's 4140, but that'll do. We need to put a slot in it for the brooch. Now this is a metric brooch. It's 3mm, the cutting size on it. The back here is 1/8 though, so on the back here is 1/8, which is pretty helpful, which means that we've really only got to make one set of bushings. This though is my bushing I'm probably only ever going to use once. There's a small end and a big end. Don't make the mistake like I did last time I used this of measuring the big end instead of the little end and making the channel in here to match the big end. What this needs to do, this first tooth just needs to go under flush there. That's all it needs. So we need to make a channel until this sits under flush. So to work out how deep that is, less the cord and all that sort of good stuff, that there is pretty much exactly 5mm. So we need to touch off here and go 5mm deep with a 1/8 cutter, so that fits in it, and then we can push that through there, or sit that in there, push that in, have a bit of a look and see how deep it is. And there's a shim for it anyway if it needs to go a bit deeper. So let's have a bit of a look, come over the mill and put a slot in that. GoPro, stop recording. So excuse the rain, it's a tropical storm about this time most afternoons. It got pretty dark pretty quick and I've got no lights, and I'm here on the mill. I've got a rechargeable torch with a magnetic base up here on the shelf, and that's about it. So I apologise for that. We've got, I think, a half reasonable camera mount here, but I've just touched off on the side there and found the centre, and then moved across half the thickness of the cutter. Then I've set the indicator up here to give me 5mm. This is flashing, so obviously I've forgotten to turn this off at some point, and we'll need a new battery. It's going to really rain here in a minute. I've taken that full depth of the cut, which is 5mm from where it's touched off on that bush, and we're going to run that through there. what we've got is the small end of the key is just fractionally under there, so that'll still go in the hole and clean up nicely. That's what we want. So it's safe to take that out, and we'll have a bit of a look at the rain maybe. So looking out the window there across the little veranda, that's starting to bucket down there. I'm going to give videoing it sort of a miss for half hour and see if it stops. Pretty wet out there. I reckon we'll get probably another 15-20 millimetres this afternoon. That's 3/4 of an inch maybe. And the spout's really overloaded there. You can see the water running out there, but it's pretty wet. You might have to put up with a Myford Boys video, or Myford Boys style video for the rest of this, because that's bucketing down and I can't talk over it. So one pass through, we've got a very, very shallow key. If we drop this shim in here like this, we should be able to run through again. Now, if you haven't got an arbor press, a drill press is probably plenty good enough. And I've actually started this on my drill press because this arbor press is about 1 inch too short to really put this through. I mean, this is putting it through pretty easy, but even with this right up inside as far as it can go, there's not enough room here to push this through. So I've started it in a drill press. So we've got a keyway all the way through, and in cast iron it doesn't take a lot to push that through, that little key broach. So if you've got one, or you're lucky enough to buy one, it's a nice investment. And if you haven't got an arbor press, then you can probably get it through with your drill press. Don't push on the table, push on the base and block it up with blocks of wood or whatever, so it's nice and stable and square, and pushing through. I mean, that's plenty good enough. In 4140 or tool steel or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to do it. But in cast iron or brass, it's not going to be an issue. And we've got a keyway. I've aligned that nicely on the spoke there. So that it's got a bit of meat. And it is fairly thin there, but I don't think we're going to put a key in there tight enough to break that out. There's two types of key we can use. We just put a square key in it, a 3mm square key, which is probably good, and a grub screw. that's quite smart. We can put a taper key through there. I'm reluctant to do that now when I'm looking at that, because we're going to break this piece out of here in the cast iron if we push it in too tight. So probably what I'm going to do is just put a keyway and a short key and a grub screw through from the top. Drilling the grub screw isn't a big deal into the top there where the key is. We just set him up and put a screw through there on an angle. It's probably the most effective and best way to get this tight, but we'll do that a bit later on. Anyway, I'm going to call this done. Next job I think with this is probably the next time you see it, it's going to have a coat of undercoat on the spokes. Just clean that up nice so that it doesn't go rusty, and so we don't have too much trouble getting this rust off here. And that's probably going to give us a bit of contrast in the videos too when we're doing it, so it's a nice thing to do as we go along. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Patreon, a huge thanks to all you guys. Like it's crazy, guys and girls. It's the best thing you can do for me. It really makes life so much easier. Have a few patrons there to support me on projects like this and in life in general. It's such a great thing that you do. Don't ever kid yourself that your little bit doesn't count, because it does. If you're watching this on YouTube, huge thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video, all that sort of stuff if you want, and more soon.